20th of August in Jeddah, the unified heavyweight world titles are on the line. The champion this time around, Oleksandr Usyk, after a difficult year in his personal life, comes back to defend against the former champion Anthony Joshua. Darren, so much to talk about from the first fight. Joshua's admitted in interviews, he said our game plan was pretty kind of scant. He said we didn't really have one going into the contest. There were a few things that set the tone extremely early in that contest, as early as the first 5 or 10 seconds. And Usyk had him playing to his tune within the first minute of the fight.
Yeah. We've been talking about this, and I feel sometimes we can overcomplicate boxing a little bit. And when you've got an advantage that AJ has, I think it's worry about yourself and not your opponent so much. Like you said, he was reacting to the feints, etc., where he's just got to get inside of Usyk and really start bullying him and get that weight advantage into play. He's got to be spiteful, he's got to be aggressive, but can he make these adjustments against one of the best boxers of our generation? Okay,
well, plenty of lessons learned from the first contest, so let's take a look ahead of the 20th of August, where this fight may be won and lost. So after the first fight, it was a surprising admission from Joshua that he didn't have much of a game plan going in, which against a fighter as complicated as Oleksandr Usyk seems like a bit of an oversight. Looking back at the lessons he may have learned, we know how much Usyk likes to dictate the space with the lead hand draw, reactions with feints, and he got a reaction from Joshua so early in the contest that really set the tone for the rest of the fight.
Yeah, when you're somebody that fights like Usyk, plenty of feinting, trying to unlock, and find openings in your opponent, you want to see exactly what he see from the first second from AJ, is when he did the feint.
So if I'm Usyk, they came to the centre of the ring within the first 5 seconds, he drops his weight, gives you a big one of those, and Joshua parried and stepped back.
Sort of stepped back, and he sort of showed him his openings, if you like.
Yeah.
And someone for Usyk straight away, the light bulb would have gone off.
Well, he knows now, if I feint, you're going to step back and I can manoeuvre you around the ring.
So I can step forward, I can step side to side, I can find these openings. So for me, look, this isn't rocket science, really. I mean, it is in the sense you've got to try and beat Usyk. Yeah. But when you do have the weight advantage like AJ has, you've just got to worry about yourself sometimes. And I feel the first bell goes, you get to the centre of the ring, Usyk's going to be fainting and doing that little
So let's say he gets that. Let's say he gets the same kind of
he's always like this,
movement.
Usyk. He's always like that. He's always sort of trying his best to get you to. It's so mentally draining for anyone who hasn't boxed. When you've got someone in front of you constantly fainting and constantly, trying to unsettle your rhythm, it's mentally draining, and that, filters through to your body, and physically it's very, very tough. So I feel AJ needs to get to the centre ring, move your head. He can even change his level and go to sort of Usyk's height. Don't worry about losing a bit of height.
Well, that'll give him a little bit more length on his jab and a bit more on the right hand as well.
And he'll be able to step in on that front foot a lot easier. So just keep your nice high guard. And I felt at times, though he did have some success with the right hand, which we'll talk about in a bit, I feel he was missing a lot to the head. He was pouring the jab out instead of snapping it out, whereas I feel the target area...
Usyk's penduluming all the time.
Well, look, I'm in front of you now, I'm Usyk, and I'm moving side to side. My head is offline constantly, constantly.
That's always there.
Look what this is.
Yeah.
It's not moving, it's static, it's exactly where it is. So for AJ, I feel, he's got such a powerful jab. Push it straight into the chest. Not only are you going to hit something and be able to set something up, it's going to hurt you as well. So I feel this area here is where AJ needs to target.
And the confidence for AJ too, to know that you are constantly touching the target and you're hitting something that on some level is going to be taking it out. And we see Canelo Alvarez deliberately targeting the arms and the torso of his opponents. That's how you be the bigger man in that kind of fight, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think sometimes you forget heavyweights are wearing the same ounce of gloves as super welterweights.
Crazy.
They're 10-ounce gloves. They're packed out with wraps, etc. Can you imagine getting hit on the arm from AJ? It's going to do damage. So I feel this area here, work upwards. Don't work downwards because you will miss. So work upwards, use this target, and even if you're hitting arms and even the waistband, etc., it's going to take its toll.
And of course, if you are headhunting early, as we saw in the contest, it gives Usyk that kind of entry point to slip and counter. He can kind of slip outside and counter, slip inside and counter. Shows a couple of the ways that he did counter AJ's straight shots down the middle.
Usyk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's constantly got his head off centre line. So when AJ was pouring the jab, which he did an awful lot, he was just straight down. He was throwing the 1-2 even, throwing getting inside and then throwing the left. I mean, he's so smart. You know, he's like a pendulum. He's always moving side to side, and he finds them openings. I mean, once he's there as well on the outside, he'll slip round the body and he'll just keep working round until you're turning round and you're walking onto a shot. I feel, look, though we need AJ to come forward and stamp his authority, his size, his weight into the fight, Usyk will have to make adjustments, but I think it's just doing what he was doing in the first fight, just a little sharper. I don't feel he can give up too much space, so I think movement in the ring is so important for Usyk.
Well, he likes to pivot around the outside, as does Lomachenko from Southpaw, and of course, same coach. We saw Jorge Linares against Lomachenko have a bit of success, just nullifying that pivot a little bit. So as he goes to pivot, he just step in and just nudge him, almost just give him a kind of a shoulder to lever him off balance. AJ's got the weight, the size and the strength. If he senses Usyk stepping around him, do you want to see him kind of underhooking the arm, stop him from moving around him, just roughing him up a little bit?
Got to be physical. Once you're in it and you stop that movement from Usyk, wait for the referee to say break. Don't just hold him in there. You've got to rough him up. You've got to hit him on the side of the head, on the body. You know, put as much damage onto Usyk early so he can you hope that he might flag or drain in the later rounds. I mean, when you're leaning on somebody who's naturally bigger, you haven't sparred with, you know, bigger fighters, it does take its toll. And that's, I think, the message for AJ's here is get that physicality, get that size into the fight as early as possible.
A little bit of the old AJ back with a little bit of the new finesse. That old dog that we saw in the early days when he was knocking people over left, right and centre.
Yeah, this is it now. This is such an important fight for AJ, and though I'm not calling for him to be reckless, he's got to worry about himself. He's got to let his hands go. He can't worry about Usyk. Let Usyk worry about the bigger man. Get in there, rough up your opponent, hit him wherever you can. This is a 12-round fight. If you can put damage on Usyk, the smaller man, early, you've got a good chance later on.
So I guess it's going to be whether Robert Garcia can implement these changes, keep Anthony Joshua on track. It's easy to make the case for Oleksandr Usyk because he boxed so brilliantly in the first contest, but we have to take into account what's happened outside the ring in his personal life. He's been in Ukraine, they've been at war emotionally, physically, a draining time for him. Not the perfect circumstances at the age of 35 when decline can happen to go into this rematch, and that's not a factor to be overlooked in this contest, is it?
No, absolutely. I think it could go one way or the other. He could be fighting for his nation. It could be that extra incentive he needs. I don't think he needs one, but I mean, it's an alien situation for so many. Or it could be huge pressure, you know, trying to win this fight for a nation that are going through what they're going through. So look, there are lots of reasons why both fighters could be affected with pressure, but I know one thing's for sure. It's going to be a great fight.
Yeah, huge amount of pressure on Anthony Joshua. Biggest heavyweight fight of the year, 20th of August in Jeddah. Unified heavyweight world titles on the line. Oleksandr Usyk, the champion, defending against Anthony Joshua.